In today's video, I traveled to the Terracotta Warriors Museum in Xi'an. It's almost as famous as the Great Wall of China and has attracted many world leaders. In today's video, I'll answer a list of common questions related to Terracotta Warriors and tell you the stories about the empire behind the Terracotta Warriors. Hello, I'm Yan. Today I'm at the Terracotta Warriors Museum in Xi'an, Shanxi Province. And today's story is about the first emperor of China. There are 3 pits on exhibition. This is Pit 1, the biggest one of the 3. It contains the main army of more than 6,000 figures. Pit 1 has 11 corridors. The floor is paved with small bricks, and those were the original bricks that date back to more than 2,000 years ago. The Terracotta Warriors are facing east, and there is a reason behind that. Question 1. Why are they facing east? The Terracotta Warriors were made under the order of Emperor Shih of Qin Dynasty, who unified China for the first time. When the Zhou dynasty was founded, the conquered land was given to Zhou relatives and ministers as hereditary fiefs. State Jin was one of them. Using investment banking language, after mergers, acquisitions, and spin-offs, there were 7 major states left in China, including State Jin, which was located in the westernmost of China. After conquering the other 6 states, Emperor Shih unified China in 221 BC. State Jin became Qin Dynasty, and Emperor Shih became the first emperor of a unified China. In fact, Shih in Chinese literally means the first emperor. The Terracotta Warriors are located approximately 1.5 kilometers east of the tomb of Emperor Shih. The warriors were laid out facing east as if to protect the tomb from any rebellion coming from the conquered land in the east. But there are exceptions. The warriors in the outmost columns are facing sideways to guard any potential attack from side. Question 2. How tall are the figures? This collection of photos showing world leaders standing next to the terracotta should give you an idea of how tall these figures are. The terracotta figures are life-sized and they vary in height. In the past, the VIPs were allowed to go into the pit. In this photo, the regents were standing on the bricks from 2,000 years ago. For conservation reasons, it's not allowed anymore. But they cannot stop me from standing next to the terracotta figure. Hi, I'm Yan. It cost 200 yuan in the museum to take photos with fake figures. Welcome to my house. I'll charge you only 20. Now the VIPs are only allowed to go inside the so-called relic hospital at the end of Pit 1. Question 3. What is the relic hospital? It's where archaeologists are repairing the relics and they call it a hospital. It's located on site at the back of Pit 1. This is not the original status of the figures when they were excavated. They were actually like this and this. The pottery warriors and horses were glued together from hundreds of broken pieces. The figures being repaired are numbered. Each figure has a box next to it. I guess archaeologists sort out the pieces first and put the pieces they believe from the same figure into the same box. There are even some machines on site. These are the figures that have been repaired. Almost half a century after the discovery of the site, the excavation work of Pit 1 hasn't been completed. Actually, it's far away from being done. From my rough observation, only 1/3 have been excavated. Question 4. Why were the figures broken into pieces? Do you notice these figures are taller than the partition walls next to them? Originally, on top of the partition walls, there were wooden ceilings that were covered with reed mats and layers of clay for waterproofing. On top of the clays, there were more soil, making the place 2 to 3 meters above the surrounding ground level. The whole architecture was burned and inundated in history. The wooden ceilings were collapsed, making the terracotta figures break into pieces. The stripes on top of the walls were marks left from crossbeams. The remains of pillars are found on both sides of the partition walls. The pillars were used to sustain the crossbeams. This is a computer-generated photo of what Pit 1 looked like according to current information. The figures in the photos are colored. That's their real color when they were excavated. But the colors faded within less than a minute once they were exposed to air. Question 5. How were terracotta warriors discovered? In March of 1974, several villagers living nearby were digging a well, which was in this spot. During the digging, the villagers dug out some pottery pieces of figures. The villagers had a feeling that those might be important relics. The tomb of Emperor Xi'an is not far away. Historically, there were grave robbers showing up in this place. The villagers knew the value of this place. They gave the pottery pieces to government officials who contacted archaeologists. That's how terracotta warriors were discovered. During his visit to the Terracotta Warriors Museum, Bill Clinton specifically asked for a meeting with villagers. Notice the bricks near where the well was? Those were the original bricks from the Qin dynasty in the 3rd century BC and might be the earliest bricks found in China. And they look not so different from today's bricks. Question 6. Were the figures made from real human? The figures vary in height, uniform, and hairstyle in accordance with rank. Their faces also appear to be different for each individual figure. You won't be able to find two identical faces. The figures look so real that there have been saying that the figures were made by shaping clay on the surface of a real human and then burning it. That's not true, otherwise there would be human bones found on site. The pottery figures are empty inside and there's no human bones in the pit. But the figures were made according to real persons. The rising of an empire. The army shows the power of a formidable empire. But if you have watched my previous video, you would know that for hundreds of years, State Jin was a small state belittled by others. It was locked to the west of the Yellow River outside the core area of China by State Jin, despite trying to maintain a good relationship through royal marriages. It could only expand westward by fighting with nomadic barbarians. Other states that dominated the core areas of China even considered State Jin as a barbarian state. State Wei, a state divided from State Jin, once conquered its large land west of Yellow River, and it could not do anything. It was through complete economic, military, and political reforms and 6 generations of kings' hard work that State Jin grew into the most powerful state in China in the 3rd century BC. The 6 kings before Emperor Xi'an were like running a rally in 137 years. No matter what political system is, it is hard to have 6 consecutive competent leaders. Think about your country. In another dimension, all competent leaders in a time frame of 137 years. The 6 kings stuck to reforms and didn't make major mistakes. Therefore, when Emperor Xi'an succeeded as a king, it's not about whether State Jin could conquer the other 6 states. It's a matter of when that would happen. One country, one system. Pit 2 is the second largest pit, and the excavation work almost hasn't started. You can see the original status of the pit. Here is a close-up of the traces of reed mats that covered the clay. A small part of pit 2 had been excavated. The broken pieces were wrapped by plastic wraps and numbered. Among the relics, there is a cartwheel. After unifying China, Emperor Shi Huang standardized the units of measurements, the currency, and even the length of the axles of carts so that carts can travel around the conquered regions without the need to change axles. It facilitated trade and commute within the originally fragmented country. Most importantly, standardized script was made official throughout all the conquered regions, forming one language, one communication system for all China. Some of my friends told me in their country there are hundreds of languages and people from different regions can't understand each other. In today's China, there are also hundreds of dialects, but we all speak Mandarin Chinese, so 1.4 billion Chinese can understand each other. That's one of the legacies from Emperor Shi Huang. His biggest legacy would be establishing a centralized government in China. He divided the country into 36 prefectures. Ever since that, federation ended in this land, and for majority of time over the past 2,000 years, there has been a unified country and a centralized government. Pit 3 is the smallest pit. This is pretty much all it has. In next week's video, I'll travel to an important pass in early Chinese history which served as the eastern border of State Jin. I'll continue telling the story of State Jin, especially the strategies it adopted to conquer the other 6 states. I'm Yan Yan. I upload a video every Saturday about sites of interest in China and histories and stories behind them. Subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next week in Hangu Pass.